Chapter 1 of Book 2 of Prior Analytics by Aristotle. Chapter 1 Recapitulation of the conclusions of certain syllogisms. In how many figures, through what kind and number of propositions, also when and how a syllogism is produced, we have therefore now explained. Moreover, what points both the constructor and subverter of a syllogism should regard, as well as how we should investigate a proposed subject after every method. Further, in what manner we should assume the principles of each question. Since, however, some syllogisms are universal, but others particular, all the universal always conclude a greater number of things. Yet of the particular, those which are affirmative, many things, but the negative, one conclusion only. For other propositions are converted, but the negative is not converted, but the conclusion is something of somewhat. Hence, other syllogisms conclude a majority of things. For example, if A is shown to be with every, or with a certain B, B must also necessarily be with a certain A, and if A is shown to be with no B, B will also be with no A, and this is different from the former. If, however, A is not with a certain B, B need not be not present with a certain A, for it possibly may be with every A. This then is the common cause of all syllogisms, both universal and particular. We may, however, speak differently of universals, for as to whatever things are under the middle, or under the conclusion, of all there will be the same syllogism, if some are placed in the middle, but others in the conclusion. As if A, B is a conclusion through C, it is necessary that A should be predicated of whatever is under B or C. For if D is in the whole of B, but B in the whole of A, D will also be in the whole of A. Again, if E is in the whole of C, and C is in A, E will also be in the whole of A, and in like manner if the syllogism be negative. But in the second figure, it will be only possible to form a syllogism of that which is under the conclusion. As if A is with no B, but is with every C, the conclusion will be that B is with no C. If therefore D is under C, it is clear that B is not with it, but that it is not with things under A does not appear by the syllogism, though it will not be with E, if it is under A. But it has been shown by the syllogism that B is with no C, but it was assumed without demonstration that it is not with A, wherefore it does not result by the syllogisms that B is not with E. Nevertheless, in particular syllogisms of things under the conclusion, there is no necessity incident, for a syllogism is not produced when this is assumed as particular, but there will be of all things under the middle, yet not by that syllogism, e.g. if A is with every B, but B with a certain C, there will be no syllogism of what is placed under C, but there will be of what is under B, yet not through the antecedent syllogism. Similarly also in the case of the other figures, for there will be no conclusion of what is under the conclusion, but there will be of the other, yet not through that syllogism. In the same manner as in universals, from an undemonstrated proposition, things under the middle were shown, wherefore either there will not be a conclusion there, or there will be in these also. Chapter 2. On a true conclusion deduced from false premises in the first figure. It is therefore possible that the propositions may be true, through which a syllogism arises, also that they may be false, also that one may be true and the other false, but the conclusion must of necessity be either true or false. From true propositions then we cannot infer a falsity, but from false premises we may infer the truth, except that not the why, but the mere that, is inferred, since there is not a syllogism of the why from false premises, and for what reason shall be told hereafter. First then, that we cannot infer the false from true premises appears from this: if when A is, it is necessary that B should be, when B is not, it is necessary that A is not. If therefore A is true, B is necessarily true, or the same thing, A would at one and the same time be and not be, which is impossible. Neither must it be thought, because one term, A, is taken, that from one certain thing existing it will happen that something will result from necessity, since this is not possible, for what results from necessity is the conclusion, and the fewest things through which this arises are 3 terms, but 2 intervals and propositions. If then it is true that with whatever B is, A also is, and that with whatever C is, B is, it is necessary that with whatever C is, A also is, and this cannot be false, for else the same thing would exist and not exist at the same time. Wherefore A is laid down as one thing, the 2 propositions being co-assumed. It is the same also in negatives, for we cannot show the false from what are true, but from false propositions we may collect the truth, either when both premises are false, or one only, and this not indifferently, but the minor if it comprehend the whole false, but if the whole is not assumed to be false, the true may be collected from either. Now let A be with the whole of C, but with no B, nor B with C, and this may happen to be the case, as animal is with no stone, nor stone present with any man. If then A is assumed present with every B, and B with every C, A will be with every C, so that from propositions both false, the conclusion will be true, since every man is an animal. Example 1. Every stone is an animal. Every man is a stone. Therefore, every man is an animal. So also a negative conclusion is attained, for neither A may be assumed, nor B present with any C, but let A be with every B. For example, as if, the same terms being taken, man was placed in the middle, for neither animal nor man is with any stone, but animal is with every man. Wherefore, if with what it is present universally, it is assumed to be present with none, but with what it is not present, we assume that it is present with every individual. From both these false premises, there will be a true conclusion. Example 2. No man is an animal. Every stone is a man. Therefore, no stone is an animal. The same may be shown if each premise is assumed partly false, but if only one is admitted false, if the major is wholly false, as A, B, there will not be a true conclusion, but if B, C, the minor is wholly false, there will be a true conclusion. Now, I mean by a proposition wholly false, that which is contrary to the true, as if that was assumed present with every, which is present with none, or that present with none, which is present with every. For let A be with no B, but B with every C. If then we take the proposition B, C as true, but the whole of A, B as false, and that A is with every B, it is impossible for the conclusion to be true, for it was present with no C, since A was present with none of what B was present with, but B was with every C. Example 3. Every animal is a stone. Every man is an animal. Therefore, every man is a stone. In like manner also the conclusion will be false if A is with every B, and B with every C, and the proposition B, C is assumed true, but A, B wholly false, and that A is present with no individual with which B is, for A will be with every C, since with whatever B is, A also is, but B is with every C. It is clear then that the major premise being assumed wholly false, whether it be affirmative or negative, but the other premise being true, there is not a true conclusion. If however the whole is not assumed false, there will be. For if A is with every C, but with a certain B, and B is with every C, e.g. animal with every swan, but with a certain whiteness, and whiteness with every swan, if A is assumed present with every B, and B with every C, A will also be truly present with every C, since every swan is an animal. Example 4. Everything white is an animal. Every swan is white. Therefore, every swan is an animal. So also, if A, B be negative, for A concurs with a certain B, but with no C, and B with every C, as animal with something white, but with no snow, and whiteness with all snow. If then A is assumed present with no B, but B with every C, A will be present with no C. Example 5. Nothing white is an animal. All snow is white. Therefore, no snow is an animal. If however the proposition A, B were assumed wholly true, but B, C wholly false, there will be a true syllogism, as nothing prevents A from being with every B, and every C, and yet B with no C, as is the case with species of the same genus, which are not subaltern, for animal concurs both with horse and man, but horse with no man. If therefore A is assumed present with every B, and B with every C, the conclusion will be true, though the whole proposition B, C is false. Example 6. Every horse is an animal. Every man is a horse. Therefore, every man is an animal. It will be the same if the proposition A, B is negative, for it will happen that A will be neither with any B, nor with any C, and that B is with no C, as genus to those species which are from another genus, for animal neither concurs with music, nor with medicine, nor music with medicine. If then A is assumed present with no B, but B with every C, the conclusion will be true. Example 7. No music is an animal. All medicine is music. Therefore, no medicine is an animal. Now, if the proposition B, C is not wholly, but partially false, even thus the conclusion will be true. For nothing prevents A from concurring with the whole of B, and the whole of C, and B with a certain C, as genus with species, and difference. Thus animal is with every man, and with every pedestrian, but man concurs with something, and not with everything pedestrian. If then A is assumed present with every B, and B with every C, A will also be present with every C. Example 8. Every man is an animal. Every pedestrian thing is a man. Therefore, every pedestrian thing is an animal. Which will be true. The same will occur if the proposition A, B be negative. For A may happen to be neither with any B, nor with any C, yet B with a certain C, as genus with the species, and difference which are from another genus. Thus animal is neither present with any prudence, nor with anything contemplative, but prudence is with something contemplative. If then A is assumed present with no B, but B with every C, A will be with no C, which will be true. Example 9. No prudence is an animal. All contemplative knowledge is prudence. Therefore, no contemplative knowledge is an animal. In particular syllogisms, however, when the whole of the major premise is false, but the other true, the conclusion may be true. Also, when the major A, B is partly false, but B, C, the minor wholly true, and when A, B, the major is true, but the particular false, also when both are false, for there is nothing to prevent A from concurring with no B, but with a certain C, and also to prevent B from being present with a certain C, as animal is with no snow, but is with something white, and snow with something white. If then snow is taken as the middle, and animal as the first term, and if A is assumed present with the whole of B, but B with a certain C, the whole proposition A, B will be false, but B, C true. Also the conclusion will be true. Example 10. All snow is an animal. Something white is snow. Therefore, something white is an animal. It will happen also the same if the proposition A, B is negative, since A may possibly be with the whole of B, and not with a certain C, but B may be with a certain C. Thus animal is with every man, but is not consequent to something white, but man is present with something white. Hence, if man be placed as the middle term, and A is assumed present with no B, but B with a certain C, the conclusion will be true, though the whole proposition A, B is false. Example 11. No man is an animal. Something white is a man. Therefore, something white is not an animal. If again the proposition A, B be partly false, the conclusion will be true, for nothing hinders A from concurring with B, and with a certain C, and B from being with a certain C. Thus animal may be with something beautiful, and with something great, and beauty also may be with something great. If then A is taken as present with every B, and B with a certain C, the proposition A, B will be partly false, but B, C will be true, and the conclusion will be true. Example 12. Everything beautiful is an animal. Something great is beautiful. Therefore, something great is an animal. Likewise, if the proposition A, B is negative, for there will be the same terms, and placed in the same manner for demonstration. Example 13. Nothing beautiful is an animal. Something great is beautiful. Therefore, something great is not an animal. Again, if A, B be true, but B, C false, the conclusion will be true, since nothing prevents A from being with the whole of B, and with a certain C, and B from being with no C. Thus animal is with every swan, and with something black, but a swan with nothing black. Hence, if A is assumed present with every B, and B with a certain C, the conclusion will be true, though B, C is false. Example 14. Every swan is an animal. Something black is a swan. Therefore, something black is an animal. Likewise, if the proposition A, B be taken as negative, for A may be with no B, and may not be with a certain C, yet B may be with no C. Thus genus may be present with species, which belongs to another genus, and with an accident to its own species. For animal indeed concurs with no number, and is with something white, but number is with nothing white. If then number be placed as the middle, and A is assumed present with no B, but B with a certain C, A will not be with a certain C, which would be true, and the proposition A, B is true, but B, C false. Example 15. No number is an animal. Something white is number. Therefore, something white is not an animal. Also, if A, B is partly false, and the proposition B, C is also false, the conclusion will be true, for nothing prevents A from being present with a certain B, and also a certain C, but B with no C, as if B should be contrary to C, and both accidents of the same genus, for animal is with a certain white thing, and with a certain black thing, but white is with nothing black. If then A is assumed present with every B, and B with a certain C, the conclusion will be true. Example 16. Everything white is an animal. Something black is white. Therefore, something black is an animal. Likewise, if the proposition A, B is taken negatively, for there are the same terms, and they will be similarly placed for demonstration. Example 17. Nothing white is an animal. Something black is white. Therefore, something black is not an animal. If also both are false, the conclusion will be true, since A may be with no B, but yet with a certain C, but B with no C, as genus with species of another genus, and with an accident of its own species. For animal is with no number, but with something white, and number with nothing white. If then A is assumed present with every B, and B with a certain C, the conclusion indeed will be true, while both the premises will be false. Example 18. Every number is an animal. Something white is number. Therefore, something white is an animal. Likewise, if A, B is negative, for nothing prevents A from being with the whole of B, and from not being with a certain C, and B from being with no C, thus animal is with every swan, but is not with something black. Swan, however, is with nothing black. Wherefore, if A is assumed present with no B, but B with a certain C, A is not with a certain C, and the conclusion will be true, but the premises false. Example 19. No swan is an animal. Something black is a swan. Therefore, something black is not an animal. End of chapter 2 of book 2 of Prior Analytics. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards.